In life sentence for men convicted of Ahmaud Arbery's murder, will they get chance at parole? Brunswick, Georgia. A judge in coastal Georgia will decide Friday if the 3 men facing life in prison for the murder of 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery could ever be released. The minimum penalty required by law for father and son Gregory and Travis McMichael and their neighbor Roddie Bryan is a life sentence, but Judge Timothy Walmsley must determine if that sentence will come with or without the possibility of parole. Prosecutors on Friday asked Walmsley to deny the possibility of parole for the McMichaels but grant it for Bryan. Meanwhile, Arbery's family asked for all 3 defendants to get the harshest penalty after they shared memories of him and the toll his death has taken. "Your Honor, these men have chose to lie and attack my son and his surviving family. They each have no remorse and do not deserve any leniency," said Wanda Cooper-Jones, Arbery's mother. "These men deserve the maximum sentence for their crimes. We have to fight too hard." For civil rights leaders, Arbery's verdict is a victory. But is it a fleeting one? Travis McMichael, 35, who pulled the trigger, was convicted of 9 charges: malice murder, 4 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, false imprisonment and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. Jurors found Gregory McMichael, 66, guilty of all of those charges except malice murder and Bryan, 52, guilty of 6 charges including 3 counts of felony murder. Both of the murder charges could also be punishable by death, but prosecutors chose not to seek the death penalty. The 3 men chased Arbery in trucks while he was running through the Satilla Shores neighborhood in Brunswick, Georgia, on February 23, 2020. Travis McMichael fatally shot Arbery during a confrontation captured on video by Bryan. The men weren't arrested for more than 2 months when Bryan's video was released, which fueled nationwide racial justice protests and later became a key piece of evidence in the murder trial. The nearly all-white jury deliberated for almost 2 days before finding the men guilty on November 24. They were taken to Glynn County Jail after the verdict was reached. 3 men found guilty of murder. Here are key moments from the trial over the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Lead prosecutor Linda Dunikoski on Friday asked the court to impose a harsher sentence on Greg and Travis McMichael because of a demonstrated pattern of vigilantism. She pointed to a series of incidents described during the trial in which the father and son tried to investigate alleged crimes in their neighborhood. "Vigilantism always goes wrong," she said. "Here we have some men who should have known better." Dunikoski added that Bryan contributed to Arbery's death in a significant way and his actions speak for themselves. Defense attorney Bob Rubin highlighted Travis McMichael's service in the Coast Guard and argued that he did not intend to kill Arbery. Rubin said the harshest possible sentence should be reserved for the worst of the worst. "This was not a planned murder," he said. "The only purpose of a life without parole sentence, Your Honor, is vengeance, is retribution." After a lunch break Friday, the defendants will have the opportunity to speak, a time when judges typically expect to hear remorse. It's unclear if the defendants would address the court. With or without possibility of parole? Ron Carlson, a professor emeritus at the University of Georgia Law School who followed trial, said Travis McMichael is most likely to get life without parole because he is the one who pulled the trigger. Although as the youngest defendant, he would benefit the most from a lighter sentence, said Ron Carlson, a professor emeritus at the University of Georgia Law School who followed trial. He said Bryan is least likely to get life without parole and Greg McMichael is kind of a mixed bag due to the roles they played in the killing. The jury verdict sent a message that vigilante justice will not be tolerated, he said. Chances are the judge will reinforce that particular theme. If Walmsley grants the possibility of parole, the men must serve at least 30 years in prison before they become eligible for parole. Typically, people in prison are not granted parole when they first become eligible. In Georgia, if someone serving a life sentence has their parole denied, the parole board will reconsider that decision at least once every 8 years. The men's attorneys told reporters they plan to appeal. Carlson said they may be able to successfully argue the judge should not have excluded evidence about Arbery's mental health and previous encounters with law enforcement, and that the public attention and protests outside the courthouse interfered with the defendant's right to a fair trial. However, he noted that only a small percentage of criminal cases are overturned on appeal. "I don't think it's a frivolous appeal," Carlson said, "but appellate courts are very reluctant. unless things are pretty clear and overpowering, to reverse on appeal. Defendants still face federal hate crimes trial, civil lawsuit. After being sentenced on the state charges, the three men will face a federal hate crimes trial for killing Arbery. The three men are white, Arbery was black. All three are charged with interfering with Arbery's rights and attempted kidnapping. The McMichaels are also charged with using, carrying and brandishing, and in Travis McMichael's case, firing, a gun during and in relation to a crime of violence. The federal charges are punishable by death, life in prison or a shorter prison sentence and a fine, according to the Federal Bureau of Investigations. There is no parole in the federal system. Attorneys will begin selecting a jury from a wide pool of 43 counties across the Southern District of Georgia for that trial February 7th. The proceedings are set to take place in Glynn County. The McMichaels and Bryan are also facing a civil lawsuit filed by Arbery's mother. The wrongful death suit seeks $1 million in damages and also names former Brunswick Judicial Circuit District Attorney Jackie Johnson, former Glynn County Police Chief John Powell, Waycross Judicial Circuit District Attorney George Barnhill, and several Glynn County police officers. Contributing, The Associated Press. Follow Ndia Yancy Bragg and Reisa Habersham on Twitter @NdiaYancyBragg and @Newsworthy17.